Morning to everybody, and welcome to this third INSOL Europe COVID coffee break. We are dealing today with the situation in insolvency and restructuring in Switzerland, Austria, and Italy. I would like to introduce our speakers, Sabina Schellenberg, equity partner of Prior in Zurich, who is the country coordinator for Switzerland of INSOL Europe. Matthias Prior, equity partner of Rechtsanwälte in Vienna, country coordinator for Austria of INSOL Europe. And finally, myself, Giorgio Corno. I'm the equity partner of Studio Corno Avvocati in Milan, and I'm the INSOL Europe country coordinator for Italy. We all advise debtors, insolvency practitioners, and some of us act as insolvency practitioners as well. We'd like first to ask Matthias and Sabina about their daily life. Please, Sabina, let us know something. How is this crisis impacting your life, your working life?
First of all, hi guys, good morning, Giorgio, good morning, Matthias.
Good morning.
It's very good to see you. I'm here in my home office. I've been working from home since the middle of March. I must say I used to work from home before, so it's not so much of a difference for me. Different is that my team is also in home office, so I don't have the possibility to just call them up and ask them to kind of provide me with a document or do a research in the physical library in our office. And another big difference is that I'm always reachable. I do not have to attend court hearings. There aren't any physical meetings with clients. So everyone can call me all day long. And this is kind of tiring. That's why I look rather forward to be able to go back to the office. And this will be, I think, at the beginning of June, where there will be a more general opening of the lockdown in Switzerland. And you, Matthias?
Here in Austria, actually, also law firms are not obliged. We're not obliged to close down, and we try to organize also home office for our employees. But I also have to say, the partners and most of our lawyers stayed in the office. So due to the fact that the secretaries were working mostly from home office, we had enough space to ensure all the measures which were published by the government were also fulfilled. Although I have to say and I totally agree, Sabrina, it's not easy, and it's different. Even in the lawyer is sitting in the office, but the secretaries are not here. It's the other way around. It's just different, and we also had to rethink some processes. But I think overall, we managed it quite well, because it's a very new situation for everybody. I think nobody thought about it in the beginning of this year, that we have to face this extraordinary situation. But up to now, I think it worked out quite well for us. How about you, Giorgio, in Italy?
Well, we are facing a similar situation. Our office has been closed to clients starting beginning of March, and all of us have been working remotely. We've been handling the situation quite well, notwithstanding this was the first time we had a total lockdown of our firm. And personally, this has allowed me to work from London, where my family is based, and this doesn't make any difference. And this is a decision we took in order to save lives, and given the serious situation in Italy. And even though law firms have been opened according to the law, we decided to go on in this situation until now, and we will go on until the end of May. And we will be starting then gradually going back to the office. Of course, it's difficult, but the protection of our health is priority for us.
Absolutely.
This allowed us to do many things, among them to study extensively the new rules on this related to this emergency regarding insolvency, restructuring, and company law. What has been ruled in Switzerland, Sabina?
Yes, in Switzerland, as in any other countries, of course, there were some temporary measures adopted in relation to the special situation for insolvency and restructuring cases. The Swiss government has issued a COVID-19 insolvency ordinance, which took effect on the 20th of April in 2020 and will be in force at least for 6 months. As in Switzerland, the duty of the relevant bodies to file for the opening of insolvency proceeding is triggered by a balance sheet over-indebtedness. Relief is geared to over-indebtedness situations caused by negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it shall give to the companies shall be given to companies that were not already over-indebted at the end of last year, and only if there is a prospect that the situation will be eliminated until the end of this year. We have also another measure, and this is a special COVID-19 moratorium. It will facilitate SMEs a simple and pragmatic access to a protective moratorium proceedings with less formal requirements than we have in the one moratorium proceeding that we have already in Switzerland. For instance, not so specific financial information must be provided to the court. The company must just submit a written request to the court and must just make plausible that the company is in distressed financial situation. This moratorium will affect all claims against the company that have arisen prior to granting of the moratorium, except first-class creditor claims, and these are in Switzerland employee claims. These are more or less the most important measures we have adopted in Switzerland in face of the crisis. And you, Matthias, you told me that there are very many measures, and they are changing from day to day. It must be very difficult in Austria to deal with this situation.
We had up to now, we had 5 COVID-19 acts in Austria, okay. Whereas the second and the fourth COVID-19 act also introduced new measures regarding the pending and the future insolvency proceedings. There are several measures, but I wanted to point out I think one of the most important is that the debtor's obligation to file for insolvency was suspended in the event of over-indebtedness in the period from the 1st of March to the 30th of June. So right now, the debtor is only obliged to file for insolvency in case of illiquidity and not in case of over-indebtedness. And another measure which is trying to help out the debtors and the companies right now is that the Austrian tax administration and also the social insurance institutions committed themselves to defer the taxes and duties as well as contributions to social security without any interests. And during the period of the crisis until May 2020, they also committed themselves not to file any insolvency applications at the court. So due to the fact that, at least in Austria, but I guess it's the same in Italy and Switzerland, the tax administration and the social security institutions are one of the most reason for insolvency applications right now. There are just not so many cases at the court. How about Italy, Giorgio?
Well, Italy took many measures in general terms, given the severity of this crisis. And with regard to insolvency and restructuring, debtors are prevented generally to file for liquidation proceedings. They've been protected by enforcement of tax claims. Terms of banking contracts or repayment of loans has been postponed until the end of September. There is no general moratorium allowed, and there is a suspension of certain duties of the directors, among whom the one of liquidate or recapitalize until the end of this year. Of course, the measures are quite significant, and they are fully described in the LexisNexis COVID-19 tracker, which may be found on the INSOL Europe website. I think this is really interesting, but I think that maybe our audience would be interested in understanding whether there has been or whether we expect new cases to be brought to the court. What is the situation in Switzerland, Sabina?
Well, at the beginning of the lockdown, I didn't really feel it that there would be many new cases, but now they start dropping in, and I'm pretty much sure that there will be many more insolvency and restructuring cases. I'm currently working on 2 new multinational restructuring matters, and they were definitely triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic. The differences we have to deal with these new cases are that we also have to assess whether all those new measures will apply and will grant some relief. And another difference is that now in these days, the future is so much unpredictable. We cannot assess what will come. We cannot know when it will be possible to do business as usual, how things with the pandemic will develop. And this makes a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear among the decision makers. No one knows what will happen in the future. And this makes it, of course, also very difficult to make plans for restructuring. I think, Matthias, it will be pretty much the same in Austria as all over the world.
Absolutely. I think also with us, we had some, let's say, small cases caused by the pandemic up to now. And since yesterday, I'm also working on a new restructuring case, which is mostly caused by the pandemic right now. But up to now, we did not face this huge wave everybody's talking about. But I also see the problems, especially for the CEOs and for the responsible people in the companies, that for them it's quite hard right now to actually decide what is the actual status, because most of the companies applied for the support programs and for subsidiaries, and many of these applications are still pending, and they did not get any feedback. So I think also it's dependent what the feedback will be and how much cash money will flow into the economy from the governments. And I'm pretty sure within the next 2 to 3 months we will know how these measures affected positively the economy, and then maybe the other companies which are still struggling then will start to apply for the insolvency measures or restructuring measures and proceedings. How is the situation in Italy, Giorgio?
Well, the situation could be described as a situation which is calm before the storm arrives. So there is a well-known poem by an Italian poet which described this situation. Given the current situation, the lockdown, and the measures which I've described before, not many cases have been filed, and there was also a suspension of the activity of courts apart from urgent matters till 11th of May. No doubt that the situation will be conditional, on one hand, to the effectiveness of the measures which have been passed by the Italian government. A lot of financial support has been promised. However, given the diligence which is required by banks, companies did not succeed in receiving this support. On the other hand, it will depend also on the duration of the pandemic. The indexes in Italy are quite good right now, but there is a fear of new rise in the pandemic in the fall. So a lot will depend on these factors. Of course, courts are not able, at least, to face a huge number of cases to be filed. So far, however, given the suspension, the interest is in how handling court hearings. We've been in Italy quite active in digital trial, and since 2008, filing of defenses and statements have been made possible, as well as services of statements. However, we never experienced digital hearings as we are now experiencing. So far, courts either allow for urgent matters and specific issues to have hearings via Microsoft Teams, even though I do not have personal experience on this, or they support defenses in writing. So instead of having hearings in person, the court asks the party to submit defenses, and then will decide without the parties attending a physical hearing. However, members of the court are meeting using Teams. What about in Switzerland?
It's very interesting what you are telling us, Giorgio. In Switzerland, court hearings, well, right at the beginning of the lockdown, the government ordered that only urgent court hearings could take place, and parties were released to file their submission for a certain time period. For litigators, that was like heaven on earth, not having to submit within a specific deadline the submission. But now, of course, things changed. In the meanwhile, the Federal Council has ordered that in lieu of oral hearings, also video hearings and hearings by telephone conferences can be performed. And this is totally new to Switzerland. We haven't had that before, and it remains to be seen how it works out. I haven't had yet such a hearing by video conference, and I'm not yet sure how and whether at all if it will work out. I'm rather not so a techie, so maybe that's why I'm rather critical for those video conferences and video hearing possibilities. But of course, it's the time where we are in, and I'm sure that mostly younger lawyers, they like that, and they will push that also for the future, and it will also stay in the future. It will be possible for the courts to decide in their discretion whether they want to hold hearings by telephone conference or by video, and we will see. we will all get used to it, I think. And you, Matthias, we talked before a bit, and then you told me that you are also rather critical because you also prefer to be physically in court. But let us know your opinion on that.
Absolutely. So in Austria, we have the possibility to file. Actually, we are obliged to file our documents electronically to the court digitally. So this we do already since 10 years. And we also had in the past provisions in the law, especially for litigation, which enabled the court to question, for example, witnesses over video conference. But to perform hearings via video conference, especially in insolvency proceedings, is completely new. But we had some courts in Austria, and especially in the eastern part of Austria, who used Zoom quite early after the pandemic crisis occurred. And now I have to say also the commercial court in Vienna, who's responsible for the company insolvency proceedings, is starting using Zoom. This is a general recommendation of the Ministry of Justice. They somehow organized a Zoom server who ensures the data security. And although it is new and we needed also to get used to it, because also like to perform and to prepare the hearing, it's not so easy due to the fact that the insolvency proceedings in Austria are non-public. So we get the invitation link from the judge, and then the insolvency administrator is responsible to send the invitation link to all parties of the proceeding, like the debtor and the creditors, and needs to ensure that only parties of the proceedings are able to attend the video conference. So we do that like we ask every creditor or every party who wants to attend need to apply by email at the insolvency administrator. So he is having a list and then send the invitation link out, which is absolutely doable. But coming back to you, Sabina, I really prefer also being present at the court because it's just different. And I also hope that this is just a solution needed due to the actual extraordinary situation. And I hope that we can come back to the regular proceeding with all people present in the court. Maybe an interesting detail is also that even the Chamber of Notaries got a special law which is limited by end of the year. So they also got enabled to certify documents over video conference, which I think is also quite interesting, which is also maybe a step towards a digitalization and might also have an impact on the notaries. So I think we need to somehow get used to the new tools. But I think we also need to rethink where is it really needed, or is it a tool for extraordinary situations and not like only having conversations and hearings only over video conference in future. That would be a very pity.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's just so exhausting, all those video conferences.
Absolutely. It's nice to have telephone conferences also, isn't it?
Yeah. It's really relaxing to have telephone conferences, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And do you think this will have an impact on the current legislation in your countries? And for Matthias, do you think this will have an impact on the implementation of the directive on early restructuring?
Like the directive, I think I think it's for every government the same, but I think the time limit is until May 2021. So anyway, it's quite a tight schedule, in my opinion. Up to now, I didn't see a draft. So my personal opinion is that this might have not a real impact now on the speed, how fast the directive is getting implemented. So I think the Austrian government planned from the beginning to finish the implementation by end of 2020. We will see how the impact of COVID-19 is. It might be even that the implementation might last until May 2021. I'm really not sure. How is it in Italy?
Well, actually, in Italy, there was a major reform which was expected to become effective mid of August. The current insolvency law is dated 1942, even though it has been amended significantly in the following years, and especially after the 2008 crisis. There is this major law reform for the introduction of an insolvency and crisis code, and the term of mid of August 2020 has been postponed to 1st of September 2021, because the government thought, and everybody agreed, that it would have been almost impossible to implement a new law in such a situation of emergency, which will consequent to the pandemic. So I don't think this is the major consequence. And the government also stated that this will allow Italy to implement the EU directive. And what do you think? What do you foresee any amendment to the current Swiss law because of the pandemic, with provisions which may be in place after this pandemic ends, Sabina?
I don't think with regard to insolvency or restructuring proceedings, but the digitalization of court hearing, I think I have mentioned it already. There will be an impact in the future, and it will be possible in the future to do those video and telephone conferencing hearings.
I think, to sum it up, it's a pity we don't see each other in Sorrento, because there are a lot of actual topics which needed to get discussed while having a cold drink. So I'm just realizing it's really a pity I don't see you in person in Sorrento, and I hope we will also, INSOL Europe is going back to normal soon.
Well, actually, for INSOL Europe, as council member, has been a very difficult situation to postpone the Sorrento conference. It will be postponed now to 2024. But of course, this is a clear evidence of how serious the situation is and what is the impact on the economy and also on these type of activities. I think our webinar was really interesting. I think we've got some time constraint, and thank you for your time, and thank you for this discussion. Hope to see each other either via Zoom or
in Dublin,
in person.
Latest in Dublin.
Latest in Dublin. I look very much forward to it.
Okay, bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Pleasure. Take care.